To back up a little bit, because we're
Okay.
assuming that everybody knows what this was. So this is a retreat we've talked about,
Hmm.
but Nick and Amy McKinley have the app Ultimate Intimacy, and their lane in life is to help married couples develop a deeper level of intimacy. And yes, that includes sex. It
Absolutely.
includes emotional connection. They talk about all that. And so this retreat was specifically designed to create a space to have some good time
Hmm.
together, to have activities together. There's some adventure. There was some great teaching, and then there was lots of time to be alone as couples. So
Right.
all of the levels of intimacy were able to be explored together and in a safe space. We didn't have kids there. We didn't have,
Right.
and they did a great job of giving space for all that. So I wanted to make sure people that were listening, maybe that
That's a
didn't
good
know
point.
about that, knew
I
what we're
just
talking
assumed
about.
since we were there and having such a good time, everybody knew why.
I know.
Good,
So
good point. Well, welcome to Pillow Talk. I'm Grant. This is my wife, Stephanie. And after almost 38 years of marriage, we've discovered how to communicate for better understanding and yoke our differences to pull stronger toward a common purpose.
As certified marriage coaches, we want to help reignite passion and connectedness in your marriage through intimate, authentic, and unguarded conversations. Now let's have some pillow talk.
Let's do it. Welcome to Pillow Talk. We have been absent for a couple of weeks, and that is because we have been doing some very fun things.
we have. It's been a fun month.
It has been a very fun month. We got to travel to Utah to the Ultimate Intimacy Retreat. And it was just beyond all we could ask or think. At least for me. What do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm speechless.
Wanted to make sure that we wasn't like you're sitting over here going, well, I thought it sucked, but I'm glad you thought it was good. So no, it was very good. It was very good for a number of reasons. One, Married for a Purpose teamed up with Ultimate Intimacy.
Nick and Amy McKinley.
And Nick and Amy. So Greg and Julie teamed up with Nick and Amy, and Grant and Stephanie was there.
We were there.
So we were all excited about that. But one of the things was how many Married for a Purpose coaches showed up.
Yeah, that was awesome.
8, maybe 9.
There was 8.
We may have lost count of one,
Yeah.
but maybe not. So 8 or 9. And it was so cool just watching the interaction, not only of them as couples, but the couples interacting together.
Yeah, because none of us really knew we were all going to be there together. It wasn't like a planned thing. It was just obviously, Greg and Julie and Nick and Amy are promoting that retreat.
Mhm.
And being married coaches, it was interesting that so many actually attended. I mean, I thought there was one other couple going, and it
Yeah.
ended up being that many. And so, yeah, so all of our coaches out there that were there, it was really neat to get to interact and engage and
It was.
to share that experience together.
And, one of the things that I noticed was just how much, it was a true intimacy as well taking place with the coaches. Sorry, I'm playing with sound and videos and all that kind of stuff here, making sure things are working. It's been a couple of weeks. I'll make sure we recorded these before and had zero sound, so I got nervous there for a minute. But yeah, the intimacy with each other, and I think
You probably want to rephrase that a little bit. So intimacy,
Not
not between couples, but
right, it wasn't swaps going on. Good catch.
to back up a little bit, because we're
Okay.
assuming that everybody knows what this was. So this is a retreat we've talked about,
Mhm.
but Nick and Amy McKinley have the app Ultimate Intimacy, and their lane in life is to help married couples develop a deeper level of intimacy. And yes, that includes sex. It
Absolutely.
includes emotional connection. They talk about all that. And so this retreat was specifically designed to create a space to have some good time
Mhm.
together, to have activities together. There's some adventure. There was some great teaching, and then there was lots of time to be alone as couples. So
Right.
all of the levels of intimacy were able to be explored together and in a safe space. We didn't have kids there. We didn't have,
Right.
and they did a great job of giving space for all that. So I wanted to make sure people that were listening, maybe that didn't
That's a good
know
point.
about that, knew
I
what we're
just
talking
assumed
about.
since we were there and having such a good time, everybody knew why.
I know.
Good point. So no, it was. But what I think that brought it all together, I mean, Julie and Greg brought it like they always do.
Yeah.
I mean,
No surprise there.
there was no surprise. Absolutely. When they show up, they bring it. So they did an excellent job. But the atmosphere was set for them to do that excellent job. And that was Nick and Amy. They have a desire to bring excellence to the table.
Yeah, they did. They brought it.
And for people like me and you who are old church on the move goers,
Excellence is what we expect.
excellence is what is expected.
I don't think we expect it. We appreciate it when we do see it. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It does give such a level of, you feel like you were welcomed. You feel like you were expected.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more, I don't know what the word is. I don't know the word for it. To go to any type of conference and retreat and feel like everything was an afterthought.
Right.
We've been to some of those and it's like, wow, I mean, you knew we were coming, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
did you really not want us here? Is that the
Right.
whole thing? So with Nick and Amy, that was just the opposite. Everything was like,
Every
wow, we
detail.
really thought about what it was going to be like for us, down to the adventure
Right.
side of hiking and doing things.
Even the hotel.
The hotel was great. Yeah.
Hotel,
actually,
I mean, you
And
would
I-
have,
shout that out. If
Yeah.
you're ever in St. George, Utah, the Best Western Settlers Point there, spot on staff. If you ever listen to this, you guys were fantastic. It was an immaculate, very well maintained, excellent hotel. And I'm a travel
over and
agent,
above kindness.
so
Over and above. Yeah, exactly.
appreciate what
So
we had there.
We do know what bad
We
looks
know what
like.
that could be.
Yeah. But no, we were very impressed with it. The food was good, everything. And then you could just see it bleed through the rest of the
Mhm.
retreat.
It did. I love how you said that it set up the environment, because obviously Greg and Julie had some tremendous content. They had 5 sessions that they brought to all of us. And also one thing that Nick and Amy were very intentional about, which I loved, was they were very intentional about keeping this retreat to a smaller number. That
Yeah.
they didn't want to have 150 people in that room. They could have, but they didn't want to, because
Right.
they knew that the value is that when you've got that many couples in a room, people are going to not be engaged. And we had some very engaging interaction in those sessions, question and answer sessions, spur of the
Right.
moment, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, one thing, we used to go to some ministers' conferences and stuff. And one thing I noticed about at ministers' conferences is when they open the floor,
Oh,
everybody has to talk and everybody has a sermon. So it's not just talking. It's like, okay, sit down and wait. Here comes my
it's my
30
turn.
minutes.
Yeah,
That did
didn't
not happen.
Oh,
I mean, there was it was set up in a mastermind
Yeah.
type format, but it was still very few would speak up. And when they did, it wasn't rambling. They
It
were
was
just,
imperative to what was being
Yeah.
said. It was helpful. I noticed the same thing. And I think that just attests to the quality of that sounds kind of tacky. The quality of people that are interested in truly engaging in this. It wasn't just a
Right.
flippant retreat for people, is what I'm trying to say.
right.
Not that there aren't great people out there that didn't show up. That's not what I meant. But the people that came, that they were looking for this. They were interested in this to a high level. So therefore we were listening more than we were trying to talk.
Yeah.
We wanted to hear what was being said so we could get takeaways. We could make our marriage intimacy better
Mhm.
and more productive. And that's what came out of it.
And before we kind of change veins here, one of the last things I want to say on this side of it was this was not set up as a Christian event.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
Mhm.
But when you bring God with you,
God shows up.
he shows up and he does. There was the last day, the ministry that took place. Actually, there was another session where one of the couples asked a question, and to watch God work through Greg and Julie,
That was one of my biggest takeaways.
it was like,
Yeah.
wow, that was so fantastic. And it was
Spot on.
it was coaching.
It
It
was
wasn't
coaching.
like thus saith the Lord type stuff. It was just
But watching them work,
Watching them
walking
work
their
it.
anointing and their calling,
Yes.
which is God given, and knowing the heart that they have for couples was so evident. We know that, but to
Mhm.
see that this is a couple that was a cold call couple, for lack of a better word. They weren't a marriage coach and they didn't necessarily know Greg and Julie ahead of time. So that was powerful to watch that. And just, again, it was organic. And that's what I
Yep.
loved about it was Greg and Julie, but Nick and Amy created that space, and they trusted Greg and Julie to craft that weekend
mhm.
the way that it would flow into this organic vein. And it was just fantastic.
Yeah. And I would bet they were even ministered to as the host. I bet they
can't
sat
imagine
back and just
either.
thought that was
Couldn't be.
amazing.
One of the best ones I think we've ever been to. We've been
Oh,
to
no doubt.
a lot of conferences and
Yeah.
retreats.
Yeah,
This was
this
by
was
far
fantastic. And
worth every penny.
Absolutely. So, I would just like to kind of go back and forth, one or two things that you remember from it, something that stood out that you'd like to talk about, and I'll do the same thing and kind of see how it goes from there.
Okay, you want me to start, or do you want to
Start it.
I think one of the things that I thought was pretty powerful, if I can say that better, Greg and Julie are so good about bringing obvious things to the table, but in a like, oh yeah, okay, that
Mhm.
makes sense. I can do that. That's something that's been missing this whole time. But yet, when you start to think about it, it's pretty like, why does nobody talk about this?
Mhm.
One of the things that I love that we hear a lot in life about people being manipulated, and we've even had podcasts where we talk about, make sure that you're not manipulating your spouse. And one of the things I talked about so beautifully was that learn how to meet your spouse where they are.
Mhm.
That there are some ground rules for intimacy, and that is so key. Is don't try to change me. I'm not going to try to change you.
Right.
Meet each other where we are, whether that's sexually, in emotional, intellectual, whatever that intimacy is. But don't justify your limitations. So these kind of flow together. I want to meet you where you are, but I also don't want I don't want to justify my limitations in that. And then that asks the next question is, well, where am I limited? And I love how Julie says this, where am I living limited? And that means, what limited beliefs have I procured in my life? And they did a deep dive into this, which we won't have time for, but that was one of my favorite sections when they talked about, breaking it down into this level here and saying, where are you living limited, and showing us how those barriers were created that have created a limited belief that then now I live in that. And so now I'm justifying that limitation. Well, that's just who I am. That's just how I was raised. Well, it's hard for me to move beyond where I am, even though you're meeting me there, if I never step out of my limitations. And so that was a huge takeaway for me.
Right.
That was a super fast version of that, but that was probably 2 hours of the conference overall, but it was fantastic. And I loved that.
Yeah, that was really good. That just heads right off into what I was kind of thinking. And it was, do my beliefs align with God's design? And, it's amazing how, one thing I got from that was, if you do what you've always done, then you're going to have what you've always had. And I don't think they did that exact quote, but they do. They got so many similar, in something similar. And, it's very important that we find out, how did God create us as a couple, and then align our thoughts with his thoughts and not with our past.
Yes. And I think that is the great divide, isn't it? We want to, I feel like change always leans into the past, and transformation will lean into the future.
Oh, that's good.
I think that for me, anytime I think about when that phrase comes across my mind, well, I wish I could change. I'm like, well, because I'm looking at something in the past that it could have been yesterday or last hour that I didn't like, instead of focusing on dissecting. I just heard this today, dissecting my successes more than I dissect my failures.
Right.
And that was Matthew McConaughey. I have to give him the credit for that. But that was so tying into this, because often my failures are attached to my limitations. And so when I focus on that, instead of focusing on the purpose and the forward progress, I think that's what happens a lot. And so then transformation never occurs, because we're always trying to go back and change something that happened in the past, even that's affecting us today. You can't change your past, but you can transform your future.
Right. Absolutely. That one of the questions they asked was, is there more that God wants for you? That I wasn't wording that very good, but is there more that God wants for you? That's how I word it. And
determine that you want more before you ask that question.
And that's one of the things that I like what they start with. And it always seems kind of weird, the whole, let's take God out of this. And you're like, what? We can't do that. That's blasphemy, but it's not. It's saying, you're limited, he's not. Remove the limitations. Come up with what you truly want for your marriage. Take it back to God and say, is this what you have for me?
And he's going to say, well, finally, children.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
You finally expanded your thinking.
How did I have such stupid children? That's what he's thinking.
That's what he's thinking.
Yeah, that's what he's thinking.
Those idiot children of mine. um, sorry.
No, that was where I was going with that is, man, if we don't even know what he wants, there's no way to reach our potential in our
Right. I agree with that 100%. And I think it's always asking the question, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's asking the questions together. It's asking that question with God privately in my alone time. What do I want more? And it's okay to say, I've never even thought about that. One of the things we talked about in this conference and that we talked about on the podcast before is in the intimacy side, the sexual part of intimacy. It's knowing what you want. And we think that we can't have that because we think for some reason that's dirty, that we don't want God to see that. Like for some reason, God can't see that part of us. And as long as it's in the sanctity of our relationship only and nobody else is being brought into that,
right.
God is a part of that, not in a weird way, but who you are is also going to reflect in how you express yourself sexually. Is that a way to say that?
I think so. I think the creation can never separate from its creator.
Right. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say even God's children that didn't make it to heaven, they're not separated from their creator from his side.
Right.
They are from their side.
Choice, yeah.
So that's the.
So I think that was amazing. Actually went into some pretty deep, very vulnerable, very powerful conversations. I mean, we're talking in a room of 30 people. To me, this is what just astounded me. Here you are with people that didn't know each other. And some of the conversations and healing that started to take place because people were in an environment where they felt safe. And Greg and Julie sharing their own history and colored past just opened that door, and people were able to express things and ask questions that you probably couldn't have ever asked anywhere else.
And I won't go into detail, but there was something said that I immediately lost it.
Oh, it was touching.
I mean,
it was heart-wrenching.
And I just felt, I'm sitting over there going, suck it up, Buttercup, but I couldn't. It's just like more snot kept coming out. It was
so authentic. It was so real. And it was in that moment, it was powerful. And there was so much impact that came out of that specific conversation that was shared. And that's what I'm talking about. It was through that, though, you're able to hear people seeking that, finding out what it is that they want. And
I would say there was not a couple there that didn't immediately feel empathy like maybe never before. I mean, so I think some people that are truly empathetic people, they may have, but if you have a room of 30 people, you've got 20, 25 that's not empathetic. They're just people, They're
caring, but empathy is different.
Yeah, exactly. They care, but empathy is different. And I would say though, it just felt like to me, like God said, let me show you what he feels.
Oh, that's exactly what it was.
And what he felt was more than what I could feel, more than I could take.
But there was a touch of it. You could sense, you had a sense of what some people had to go through in their lives.
It was beautiful.
It was absolutely beautiful. And it was just, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. So incredible. So again, it was the environment that was created. It was the protected, safe space. It was a prayer covering, even of those people that couldn't attend. I know there's a lot of coaches that didn't attend, but I know they were praying, and there was just a lot of people, and it all makes a difference. It made a difference. It was definitely afterwards just being privy to some of the comments that were said, that the impact. There were marriages that are now on the road to transformation. I started to say change, but they are on the road to transformation.
Yeah.
Because there were things that were said, there were conversations that were had offsite that all of a sudden they realized, I'm not alone in this. Okay, just knowing that this is not something that you battle on your own gives confidence to charge forward. And sitting in the same space with a spouse, hearing the same thing, then all of a sudden one couple said, you gave us language for what we sensed but didn't know how to put words to. Well, now that language, now they're speaking a whole new dialect together. And it wasn't that it was a problem. It's like they didn't know how to put the words to what they were trying to get across. And that's transformational.
Well, I would say, even from the whole experience that, I felt like we even had transformation.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we went in more of a supportive role.
Serving.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
We thought, hey, this would be a blast to go. And then we're like, well, we probably shouldn't. And then Greg and Julie said, we're going to be there teaching. And we're like, oh, then we have to go. And so
'Cause we're
you know,
very
not that we had to,
good.
because we wasn't
That's what I said,
expected.
junkies,
We wasn't
groupies.
expected, but yeah, because we're stalkers, and
But
so
love
we
retreats. So let me back
Yes.
up, because there was an expectation for growth. We always have an expectation for growth, but we just didn't really know what to expect. We've never been to one of these before.
Right.
So, and we've been working in our own marriage in the intimacy realm for a couple of 3 years now. So it
Right.
wasn't like a brand new space for us. But that's what I love is even though you think, well, I don't need help in that area, your marriage always needs opportunities and space for growth, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know that can be
Right.
growing in your life right now. And it just was explosive, powerful growth.
So, and change of vein again, not because we probably
The
ought to be
vein
winding
changer.
this down a little bit.
Rewinding it down. Oh, be winding it down.
Be winding it
That
down.
was just funny. Sorry.
I tell
Gotta
you,
have
that
humor.
woman God gave me.
Gotta have humor.
The hike. What'd you think?
Oh,
I just thought that was
wow.
just flat out beautiful.
So yeah, so anybody else that is in that area, we did Snow Canyon, which is a state park, which should probably be a national park. It's just too small. So if
Right.
you're ever there and can't do Zion National Park, do Snow Canyon. Incredible. And I have to tell a funny story on Nick, because he is like legit adventure hiker guy. And the whole joke the whole time was, he says he was so concerned that everybody would enjoy. So he was trying to pick hikes that would be not strenuous, that would be, because he didn't know the fitness level of everybody. And the joke was that if he said it was only a 15-minute hike, it was really like an hour.
Yeah.
And so, but it was great. It was a great hike. It was doable. It was pretty intense at points. If we
It was
chose
stressful
to go
enough.
that far. But what was so cool was on this hike, I noticed, maybe you did too, there was one couple that wasn't able to go because he'd had an injury, so he couldn't go. And so most of us were on this hike, but instead of us all hiking in one giant group together, there was splits. And I looked up, and there's different times when the wives were hiking 2 by 2, and then the couples were back together. There was so much conversation as we were doing things together in an activity.
It was awesome.
That it just created this. It was almost like a team building experience. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you think? Not that we were like a team that's ever together, but there was something about coming together in this space.
It did feel like a team building
It
event.
did, and it was
Because
it was-
everyone there
had the
was
same
there
goal in mind.
had the same goal in mind for marriages, whether it was their own or for another.
So we were building a relationship outside of our individual marriages with other couples, which then lent for that space, because those conversations that we talked about earlier in this
Right.
podcast happened Saturday evening and into Sunday. So it was getting that space to let our guards down about things that weren't marriage with these other couples,
Yeah.
one-on-one, getting to know each other. So fantastic. If you're ever out there doing a retreat on your own, you highly need to think about doing that, because
Right.
that was, whether I'm sure Nick meant for it to be that way. That's part of what
I'm
he
sure.
did. But it was fantastic. And he created a shuttle for us. We didn't have to worry about how to get there.
No.
He took care of everything, had water for us, everything, which was
Yeah.
huge. So yeah.
Just over and above. It was amazing.
Fantastic. And it was beautiful, beautiful scenery, just incredible geological formations and lava and volcanic. And it was just, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Utah, if you live in Utah, you have a great state to
man.
live in.
Yeah. We're going back.
We're going to have to go back.
We're definitely going back. I'm going to say one little thing that's kind of from a selfish side that was awesome. And then I'm going to ask you for a quote to wrap this up with. I want us both to have, what is a quote from the event that stands out in your mind? Okay. But from the selfish part of it, we traveled to Utah to find out two couples listen to our podcast on a weekly basis, pretty much.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure they've missed some.
That was powerful for you and I.
Yeah, you get to thinking, man, why would anyone listen for one thing? So, I mean, we just talk about what we talk about. But the fact that, two different couples came to us at 2 different times and, said, we listen and noticed the little things, like from the video that apparently what one of them watches, they noticed we switched chairs one time. So whether what we said was any good or not, we at least throw kinks into people's, thought process. But yeah,
no, that was, who you are if you're listening, because you're probably listening.
Yeah, maybe.
We know who you are.
And man, that just such a bolt of confidence.
Huge bolt of confidence for us. Yeah.
Because we've always said, if we could affect one person, we'll be happy. And so if we've affected two, we're moving
Because
over.
we love what we do.
That's
This
right.
is part of our calling. And so to have
Yep.
somebody actually engage with that makes it feel like it really is part of what we're supposed to do. So,
Yeah, that was awesome.
all right,
So,
what's your quote?
man, I have two. So I was hoping you'd go with one first to see, because I don't want to take yours
That's
and then
okay.
you'd be so stunned.
I could have another one.
Okay. I like scheduling spontaneity.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool because it sounds like such a contrast in what you would think. But the fact of if you'll do it right, you can actually be spontaneous, even with what you have scheduled.
Ladies, listen to this. It was so good because speaking into women biologically, we're not very good at spontaneity because there's a little bit, but I can put it on my calendar that this is going to be the night we're going to have some fun. Well, he doesn't know that. So it seems spontaneous to you because I'm beginning to prepare myself for that ahead of time. So that's how come that works.
Yeah. And I think, when you come into it, especially when the woman takes control in that way. And so, I think a lot of times they get a different husband.
Well, it's shocking. They're probably shocked.
Well, yeah, but I think, he's like, dang, now, I just love her that much more, and I just want to show it that much more.
I know tonight I'm going to leave work early, and I'm going to have dinner on the table or fixed, so I don't have to worry about dinner. Any kind of distraction that you can eliminate ahead of time, ladies, that's what gets us. We get distracted, and it hurts our physical intimacy. So then, it doesn't mean anything. You don't have to do anything anyway, right?
Right.
So, but when you can come in and all of a sudden the atmosphere is different because I've already got this plan. I've already got candles lit. It's a win-win because it's super great. And it doesn't have to happen a lot, but it also leans into the quote, foster the flirt.
Yeah, that's my other one. So
yeah. And I have another one besides that. So that's awesome. Foster the flirt. And flirting, we used to flirt when we were dating, which I don't know. Was I a flirt? I don't know. You were flirty, but you were just flirty because you.
And you didn't realize it, but you were. You would give me those. Okay. You flirted with your eyes.
Okay. So, so whatever it is that you used to do, fostering the flirt definitely helps too. And so that's a way too. If you're going to schedule spontaneity, how you flirt with your husband. That's a way to actually. And the Ultimate Intimacy app is great for that. You can send flirty texts through that. You can even send some flirty pictures through that nobody else sees. They kind of help you set that up. So it's really private and cool. So fostering the flirt then helps to create that space. And it goes a long ways because maybe that happens once or twice a month. And then the rest of the time when things don't quite go as well as you would like for them to, the frustration level drops dramatically because there's been successful, you're dissecting what was successful instead of what failed, right? And even in your physical intimacy. So the other thing that meant a lot to me, because this is just a season I'm in right now, is we talk so much in our world about being busy and being fatigued. And so a practical solution for that, and then a quote would be, fight for the margin.
Oh, yeah.
So, there should be margin. In this case, a lot of times I talk about margin being something that we don't step into, but in this case, you should have margin in your life. You should have space that is for physical intimacy that goes back to the spontaneity. Fight for that, because if you're too busy for powerful intimacy, and that could be emotional too. It could be you need to have some intellectual chit chat, and it just means it's not chit chat because it's intellectual. Fight for that margin. Discover, engage, and support each other's recharge cycles. That's huge. So fight for that. Fight for that.
And as you notice, Stephanie is an overachiever. She did 2 quotes, not 1. So that's okay. We're going to give it to her because I'm glad she learned that much. That was good. So we want to wind it down with that. We appreciate so much you listening. We thank you for sharing. We ask you to go to especially if you're on YouTube, go to the notifications bell, hit that. If you're having trouble finding us, you can go to foreverwithpurpose.com, and we have a link to all of our social media type stuff. So platforms. I like that. It's better stuff.
It is better than stuff. I'm trying to be a little more sophisticated.
You're trying to be more.
Since we have 2 people that follow us.
That's right.
I want to try to be.
Now, we're kind of a big deal. Anyway,
love you guys so much.
Yeah, this was awesome. So we appreciate you being here, and we ask, share it, get it out there, and if you get a chance, attend the next one. And
They're
I
gonna-
saw on the app
Oh, yeah?
this fall.
They're going to have one this fall.
They haven't got the date set yet,
Okay.
but they're looking at this fall. So there's a chance
Yeah.
for sure this fall there may be another one, and we highly recommend it. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you again for joining us on Pillow Talk with Grant and Stephanie. Don't go to Pillow Talk without Grant and Stephanie, because you get some pillow talk you don't want to talk about. Or maybe you do. Anyway, have a great one.
Look at me.
We'll see you later.